You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. Today we're diving deep into a legal analysis that's been making waves in the world of high-profile criminal cases. We're talking about the recent verdict in Sean Diddy Combs' trial and what it might mean for another music icon R. Kelly and his 2021 RICO conviction. The Diddy case has raised some serious questions about how RICO charges are applied, and we're going to unpack whether there were loopholes in Kelly's prosecution that mirror the defense strategies which worked for Diddy. Buckle up because this is going to be a detailed, thought-provoking exploration. Let's get into it. The Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, commonly abbreviated as RICO, is a powerful legal tool. Originally designed to take down organized crime syndicates like the Mafia, it's now being used in cases involving celebrities like R. Kelly and Sean Diddy Combs. RICO allows prosecutors to charge someone with running a criminal enterprise by proving they orchestrated at least 2 predicate crimes like bribery, extortion, or in these cases sex trafficking within a 10-year period, all tied to an organized scheme. Sounds straightforward, right? Well, not so fast. The Diddy verdict shows just how tough it can be to make RICO stick, and that's where we start to see potential cracks in R. Kelly's conviction. In July 2025, a New York jury acquitted Sean Diddy Combs of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges, though he was convicted on 2 lesser counts of transportation for prostitution. The key to Diddy's defense? They successfully argued that his actions were personal misconduct. Think consensual relationships or transactional arrangements rather than evidence of a coordinated criminal enterprise. This is huge. The jury didn't buy the prosecution's narrative that Diddy's business empire Bad Boy Entertainment was a front for organized crime. Why does this matter for R. Kelly's case? Because Kelly's 2021 conviction hinged on a similar RICO framework, and the Diddy case suggests there might be loopholes in how prosecutors define Kelly's enterprise. Let's break down the Diddy case first to understand the defense's winning strategy. Prosecutors claim Diddy ran a criminal enterprise that facilitated sex trafficking, kidnapping, arson, and other crimes. They painted a picture of a music mogul using his power, employees, and resources to coerce women into sexual activities and cover up his actions. Sound familiar? It should. It's eerily similar to the narrative in R. Kelly's case. But here's where things diverged. Diddy's defense team hammered home that his relationships were either consensual or transactional. They argued there was no structured criminal enterprise, just a celebrity with a controversial lifestyle, and the jury agreed, finding that the prosecution didn't prove an organized scheme beyond a reasonable doubt. This is where we start to see the first potential loophole in R. Kelly's conviction. In Kelly's 2021 trial in the Eastern District of New York, prosecutors argued he led an enterprise of managers, bodyguards, and assistants who helped him recruit women and girls for illegal sexual activity. They said this enterprise wasn't just about promoting Kelly's music but was designed to enable his allegedly behavior. But what if, like Diddy's defense, Kelly's team could have framed his actions as personal misconduct rather than an organized criminal scheme? Meanwhile, this is exactly what Jennifer Bonjean argued but was repeatedly ignored by Judge Ann Donnelly. The Diddy verdict shows that juries should be skeptical of RICO when the evidence doesn't clearly show a structured organization with employees explicitly facilitating crimes. And such should have been the reasoning when it came to R. Kelly's case as well. Think about it. In Diddy's case, prosecutors pointed to incidents like alleged assaults, drug-fueled freak-offs, and even a 2016 hotel attack on his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura. But the defense countered by questioning why victims didn't report the behavior at the time or leave Diddy's orbit. They showed text messages of support and love from alleged victims after the incidents, suggesting these were consensual relationships and not coerced criminal acts. This strategy undermined the idea of a criminal enterprise. Now, let's apply that to R. Kelly. In his trial, witnesses testified about years of abuse, but many were adults who stayed in Kelly's circle, often benefiting financially or professionally. Could Kelly's defense have argued these were transactional relationships, not evidence of a RICO-level conspiracy? Well, Bonjean did argue that these were equally consensual relationships, and she did a good job proving that there was no criminal enterprise but was ignored. Here's the thing, RICO requires prosecutors to prove not just that crimes happened, but that they were part of a coordinated enterprise with a clear structure and criminal purpose. In Kelly's case, prosecutors did call witnesses who claimed to be part of his entourage, but the Diddy verdict raises a question: was the evidence of Kelly's enterprise as airtight as it seemed? Or did the prosecution stretch the definition of enterprise to include Kelly's entire music career, much like they tried with Diddy's Bad Boy Entertainment? Let's dig deeper into this loophole. In R. Kelly's trial, the prosecution leaned heavily on the idea that his entourage managers, assistants and drivers formed an enterprise that existed to enable his crimes, which was an outright lie. They argued Kelly directed these employees to recruit girls and women, often from concerts, for illegal sexual activity, which wasn't the case. But the Diddy case now shows that juries should demand clear evidence of coordination and not just allegations of bad behavior. If Kelly's employees were simply doing their job, scheduling tours and handling logistics without knowingly participating in a criminal scheme, does that really meet the RICO threshold? The Diddy defense successfully argued that employees doing their normal duties doesn't equal a criminal enterprise. Could Kelly's team have made a similar argument to weaken the prosecution's case? Well, they did, but nothing was done. Another key difference between the two cases is the nature of the said victims. In Kelly's trial, the inclusion of said victims claimed to be minors was likely trigger the jury's emotions. The prosecution highlighted allegations of sexual exploitation of children which carried immense emotional weight, with the jury likely causing them to err. This likely made the idea of a coordinated criminal enterprise more compelling. After all, the idea of minors is so heinous that it's easier to believe it required a structured operation, which is not necessarily true. In contrast, Diddy's case involved adult women, and the defense emphasized their agency, arguing they chose to stay in his orbit. This framing made it harder for prosecutors to prove coercion or a criminal enterprise. So, here's a potential loophole for Kelly: did the prosecution's focus on minors create a broader interpretation of what constitutes an enterprise, one that might not have held up if the victims were all adults? Let's explore that idea further. RICO is a rigid law, as legal experts have pointed out. It's designed to be hard to prove because it requires showing a continuity of members in a criminal organization, not just isolated incidents of bad behavior. In Diddy's case, the jury didn't see enough evidence that his business empire was a criminal machine. They saw a celebrity with messy personal relationships and not a mob boss. For Kelly, the prosecution through the media painted him as the head of a predatory enterprise, which was never true. In fact, the evidence was more about his personal actions than a coordinated scheme. If Kelly's employees were just following orders without criminal intent, the RICO charge might have been overreached, much like in Diddy's case. Here's where the Diddy verdict really shines a light on Kelly's conviction. Legal analysts in Diddy's case noted that prosecutors overcharged by pushing RICO when the evidence didn't fully support a criminal enterprise. They argued the case was more about personal misconduct than organized crime. In Kelly's trial, the prosecution's success may have hinged on the emotional impact of the said minor victims, which made jurors more likely to accept a broader definition of a criminal enterprise even if none existed. But without that element of minors, would the RICO charge have held up? The Diddy case suggests that if Kelly's defense had pushed harder on the consensual or transactional nature of his relationships, especially with the adult victims, they might have exposed weaknesses in the enterprise narrative. Bonjean actually did this so well, but sadly by the time she came in, there was no jury but appeal judges who were already equally corrupted like the trial judges. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.